Imagine the wind howling, salt water spraying against your face as you stand on the deck of a grand ocean liner. The chill of the evening air clings to your skin, the horizon stretching infinitely before you, where the vast expanse of the Atlantic meets the dimming sky. The vibrancy of the ship, a floating palace, surrounds you, its brass fittings gleaming under the soft glow of lanterns, laughter ringing in your ears. But beneath the revelry, a sense of unease simmers, a feeling that something unseen lurks just beyond the edges of the world. Tonight, we are looking at a story of ambition and tragedy, of hopes dashed against the unforgiving sea. April 1906, the luxurious steamship St. Paul embarks on a voyage filled with dreams, as richly diverse passengers gather aboard, each carrying their own aspirations, unaware of the dark fate that awaits them. Cut through the laughter and clinking of fine china, and you can feel the electric anticipation in the air, a promise of adventure, coloured by a hint of danger lingering at the fringes. As the ship sails into the unknown, the stakes are high. Each passenger, from the wealthy industrialist seeking fortune in America to the immigrant yearning for a new life, holds tightly to the notion that they are on the cusp of a grand journey. But beneath the surface of elegance and glamour, tension is mounting. The ocean can be a cruel mistress, its beauty hiding depths of terror. The St. Paul, a marvel of modern engineering, is also a reminder of humanity's frailty against nature's whims. As the waves crash against the hull, a sinister whisper seems to ripple through the decks. A storm brews on the horizon, one that will plunge the ship and its passengers into chaos and despair. History is poised to turn on its head, writing a tale of survival in the face of impossible odds. This is a narrative not of triumph, but of the fragility of existence amidst grandeur, where hope meets harrowing reality. Welcome to the story of The Descent of the St. Paul. Chapter 1. The Calm Before the Storm. The horizon stretches endlessly, a vast melange of blues and whites under the midday sun. The sea sparkles like shattered glass, reflecting light in dazzling patterns. On board the St. Paul, there's an uneasy charm in the air. The ship, a sturdy vessel clad in fresh sails, cuts through the water with an arrogance that belies the tempest soon to come. Captain Thompson stands at the helm. His face, weathered and strong, watches the ship's wake with a hawk-like gaze. "Keep her steady," he instructs. The first mate nods, a low murmur of acknowledgement escaping his lips. The wind whispers through the rigging, a gentle caress against their skin. For now, the sea is calm, but calm can be deceptive. The crew exchanges furtive glances, a shared unease tailing them like a shadow. It's a well-worn superstition. The longer the weather stays fair, the harsher the storm that follows. "Did you hear about old Mand? Fletcher?" one sailor murmurs, his voice low, meant only for his companions. They lean in, the sounds of the sea muffled around them. He claimed the ocean is restless, that it speaks to him. Eyes roll, but the laughter sounds nervous. The salt in the air mingles with a growing tension, an electric current flickering beneath the surface. As night falls, the beauty of the Atlantic transforms. Stars pinprick the darkness, a tapestry of light suspended above an ever-changing sea. The crew unwinds, mugs of rum warming their palms. Shadows play across their faces, laughter mingling with the sound of waves lapping against the hull. Yet, there's a chill in the air, a whisper of something brewing. A distant rumble rolls like an angry stomach, too far to be thunder, too close to ignore. The clouds gather, dark and swollen against the vast night sky. "Mark my words," one sailor says, tilting his cup. "This is just the eye before the storm. We'll pay for this calm." The words hang heavy in the air, a morbid prophecy that makes the laughter die almost instantly. In the passengers' quarters, unease takes root. Women share whispered conversations under the glow of lanterns, eyes darting toward the darkening horizon. Children, once full of wonder, cling to their mothers in silence, sensing a shift that their innocence can't yet comprehend. "You'd think with all this sea air we'd feel free," one young woman murmurs, her voice trembling slightly. Instead, it feels like we're trapped. Her companion, a weather-beaten man, offers a measured smile. It's just a spell of apprehension, lass. The ocean has moods. His tone is reassuring, but there's a far-off look in his eyes, as if he senses what lies ahead. As days slip by, the crew struggles against the malaise. They toil under the unyielding sun, scrubbing decks, keeping watch. They exchange worried glances, particularly as the ship brews a storm of its own. Disturbances that burrow into both their routines and their spirits. "Why do you suppose the captain's been so on edge?" the first mate asks one night, his voice low, edged with suspicion. The question floats through the still air, laden with the weight of the unknown. "Could be the reports from other vessels," comes the reply. "They've been talking about rough waters ahead. We're losing daylight to storms." With each passing hour, hearts pound heavier. Rain begins to threaten, dark clouds rolling in on the horizon like an incoming army. On that fateful afternoon, the ship sails into the belly of the ocean. Waves rise and fall with a furious rhythm. The crew's laughter fades, replaced by the clatter of anxious boots as they scramble to secure every loose item. And then, a low moan sounds from deep within the hull. A chill spreads, slicing through skin like a knife. "What was that?" a sailor asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Fear glimmers in his eyes. "No," one answers. Silence swallows them whole. Captain Thompson stands firm, despite the shift in the air. "We've faced storms before. Keep your wits about you." Yet his reassurances feel more like a command than comfort. The ocean crashes against the hull, more insistent now, as if beckoning them to plunge deeper into its depths. That night, the first drops of rain begin to fall. They are few and far between at first, soft taps against the deck, but soon the sky unleashes its fury. The wind howls like a wild beast, stealing breath from their lungs. The St. Paul's sails strain against the assault of nature, flapping violently as if caught in a dance with death itself. "On deck!" roars the captain, the order slicing through the chaotic din. As men scramble up the rigging, the smell of salt becomes thick and suffocating. The rain pours down in sheets, turning the deck into a slick, treacherous surface. A sharp crack of lightning rends the sky, a searing light followed by an explosive roar. The crew clings to ropes and rails, heartbeats racing in sync with the storm's rage. "Stay close," the first mate shouts, but his voice is consumed by the storm's roar. Fear spirals among the sailors, and in their eyes, one can see it, the dawning realization that they are no longer master of the sea. Above them, the rigging creaks ominously, threatening to snap. The temperature has plummeted. Water seeps into their boots, icy fingers creeping beneath their clothes. But even in this madness, small moments emerge. A man mutters a prayer, gripping his rosary tight. An older sailor gently clasps the shoulder of a trembling youth. "Stick close, lad. We'll see this through." As darkness engulfs the ship, it does more than obscure sight. It deepens the dread. Thunder crashes again, shaking the St. Paul. And then, amidst nature's chaos, the ominous creaking of the ship takes on a new, dreadful tone. A splintering sound echoes as wood strains under. Pressure. In that moment, as the crew fights desperately against the storm, the unthinkable becomes possible. Out there, in that wild dance of destruction, something's losing hold. What is wrong with their mighty ship? Is she breaking? And as the waves rise higher, could this be merely the beginning of their descent into darkness? Before we descend further into the dark, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You won't want to face the rest of this journey alone. And before we continue, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from tonight. Knowing you are out there, somewhere in the dark, makes this history feel all the more alive. Chapter 2. The Storm Hits. The horizon is painted with an unsettling grey. The waters, previously calm, transform into a restless beast. It's late afternoon, and the sky darkens, heavy clouds gathering like a sinister army. A chill bites at the faces of those aboard the St. Paul. Men stand on the deck, their brows furrowed. "This isn't just a squall," whispers one sailor, his voice barely audible above the gathering wind. He squints at the waves, feeling the tension build in his gut. It's a feeling he knows too well. The first slap of rain splatters against the wood, cold and relentless. The passengers, drinking in the beautiful sail, now see their dreams drown. Women pull their shawls tightly around their shoulders. Children cling to their mothers, faces contorted in confusion and fear. "Don't fret, love," a mother tells her son, but her voice wavers. As the wind howls, it snatches at sails with ghastly fingers. Crew members scramble, their shouts mingling with the roar of the ocean. "Hold fast," cries the captain, his face grim but resolute. He grips the wheel tightly, knuckles white. The ship tilts sharply to one side. Wood creaks ominously, a groaning bull fighting against a relentless tide. A man loses his footing, crashing hard against the railing. He gasps, the wind knocking the breath from his lungs. "Get up," another shouts, but the sea is angry, and it's too late. Water sprays over the deck, icy tendrils soaking the crew. It finds its way into every crack. Boots squelch and slip. Bodies stumble under the onslaught. The sensation is disorienting. Those who had laughed over dinner hours earlier now struggle to hold back panic. "Man the lifeboats," yells the first mate. His voice cuts through the storm, but chaos reigns. Hands fumble as they lash ropes. Disheveled hair sticks to sweaty foreheads. The passengers stall, caught between disbelief and terror. "Please, we need to move," a woman screams, but it's lost to the pounding rain. Instead, the grows louder, an animal caught in a snare, struggling against the futility of escape. The clouds swirl overhead, lowering, thickening. Thunder crashes like a war drum. Water cascades off the sides of the ship, a non-stop torrent. The swirling chaos is dizzying. A crystal-clear scream pierces the storm. A child has slipped from his mother's grasp. She lunges, but her fingers grasp air. No! Her cry is swallowed whole by the sea. The deck has become a perilous place. It feels like wrestling a giant. The ship rises, then plummets into a churning valley of black water. Stomach-sinking drops filled with dread. They are only tiny souls upon this swaying leviathan, screaming against the tempest. One man, with a face set against resolve, works to secure the last lifeboat. "Hold on," he shouts to a pair of terrified women. His words are swallowed by an avalanche of water crashing against the ship's side. The waves rise, monstrous and frothy, almost as if they mean to engulf the entire vessel. "She's taking on water," someone cries from below deck. A wave washes over, cascading like a waterfall, and the creaking sounds escalate into a chorus of chaos. Every second feels like an hour, time stretching thin. The state of alertness drives adrenaline through their veins. Waves crash against their bodies, trying to tease them into surrender. The world blurs into a chaotic tapestry of salt and foam. "No!" shouts a sailor, trying to pull a man from the edge of the deck as the ship tilts dangerously again. "You can't go over." Darkness gathers like a spectre. The wind shrieks and the ship heaves. A voice cries out, desperate. Is it the end? But no one answers, for the truth lingers in the salty air. One man pours his heart out, muttering a prayer through gritted teeth. "O Lord, let us see land again." His hands tremble against the railing, eyes squeeze shut, a momentary escape from the madness around. The ship dips lower with a sudden lurch, and the sound is deafening, a crack, a snap. Everything tilts, chaos reigns, and the first mate stumbles. He clutches desperately, only to find that the railing is empty where it should hold fast. "Get the cargo secure," he orders, but his voice breaks against the howl of the storm. A nearby barrel rolls away, scattering the crew. Metal clings to wood, and bodies slam into each other in a tragic dance of desperation. The upper deck swallows the wreckage with a hungry maw, and in that moment, the ship seems more vulnerable than alive. Through the chaos, a sailor's voice cuts through. It isn't the storm that will drown us, it's the panic. He fights against the tide of fear inching its way into their hearts. Still, With each gripping wave, the atmosphere thickens. A bolt of lightning strikes, brief illumination in the darkness. Faces glow in terror, eyes wide and reflecting the ocean's wrath. "Brace yourself," the captain bellows amidst the devastation. His presence commands attention, a flicker of hope in the darkness. But even he appears shaken, a pillar cracked. The sound of a crashing wave is terrifying, a deep rumbling roar as it climbs higher. The St. Paul feels small, an insignificant plaything against nature's fury. Screams blend with the roar of the waves, and the ship jerks violently. Deck cargo shifts, threatening to snap their fragile reality. A man stumbles, his foot catching on a loose rope. He tries to regain balance, heart in his throat, but it's no use. Down he goes, tumbling overboard, a fleeting figure swallowed by foamy depths. "Help him," a voice cries, but there's no time. Ripples disappear into the darkness, leaving behind only questions. There's nothing they can do. Amidst the torrent, a desperate camaraderie forms. A crew member grips another's arm. "By God, we'll face this together." Water splashes fiercely, an antagonistic dance drenching their sweat and tears. The rhythm of survival beats heavy in their chests. But the storm is relentless. It howls like a grieving soul, a primal force that rejects surrender. Whooping winds snarl, stealing their breath as fury reigns. The ship careens, and a massive wave looms. Ahead, its crest sharp as a slaughter's blade. Time slows as eyes widen. The sailors exchange a glance, the weight of dread settling heavier than the sky. The captain seizes the wheel, but it's drawn to disaster. The moment stretches, every heartbeat loud, echoing against the storm's fury. They brace for impact. "Lord, have mercy," someone mutters, the words a final prayer. And then, the world explodes. The wave crashes down, and the St. Paul is swallowed. Wood splinters under the force of a titan. The screams go silent, as the ship disappears beneath the tumultuous sea. In the heart of the storm, darkness swallows all. What could have been a voyage of peaceful discovery now spirals into survival against the odds. As the last echoes of terror fade into the abyss, a silence envelops the tempest. But not all hope is lost. As the rain begins to ease, the ocean churns, revealing strange shadows lurking in the depths. What horrors await beneath the waves, and who will emerge to tell the tale? Chapter 3. Abandoning Ship. The storm howls like a beast unleashed. Waves crash against the St. Paul's hull, splintering wood like brittle bones, cracking beneath immense pressure. Rain lashes down, sharp as needles, soaking everyone to the bone. "Get to the lifeboats," Captain Hayes bellows, his voice barely piercing through the deafening roar. His face is a mask of resolve, but the tremor in his hands betrays his fear. Around him, the crew springs into action, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Eyes wide with panic, passengers scramble, searching for safety amid chaos. The air is thick with the acrid smell of salt and fear. "Stay together," shouts First Mate Sullivan, his brows knitted with urgency. He grabs a young woman by the arm. "We must go now, before it's too late." She nods, dread etched on her face, clutching her husband's hand. The chill of the metal railing digs into her palm. Waves crash higher, sending spray that stings like 1,000 tiny daggers. A distant boom reverberates. A mast shudders, the wooden structure groaning under the storm's assault. The ship lurches violently, tilting to one side, throwing people against one another. Someone screams, "My baby!" The sound sends ice down their spines. A mother clutching her child to her chest, her eyes pleading. Panic ignites like a dry spark in kindling. "Jump! We have to jump!" a voice cries, but the freezing water seems insurmountable. Fear and survival instincts clash. The lifeboats bob wildly, tethered but barely holding. The smell of gunpowder wafts faintly from the deck where crew members frantically attempt to secure them. "Help! Help us!" someone shouts, a plea swallowed by the storm. The sea roars back, a reminder of its relentless power. The decision hangs heavy in the air, thickening like the gathering mist. Stay with the ship, a crumbling refuge, or leap into the abyss. Every soul wrestles with their choice. I can't do it. A man stumbles, eyes wide like saucers, his voice cracking. I'd rather stay here. He's about to turn back when another wave strikes. A loud crack echoes. Wood splinters. A massive wooden beam falls, narrowly missing the man as he dives away. He gasps, realizing the very ship meant to protect them has turned into a death trap. Now! We go now! Captain Hayes commands, fear sharpening his authority. Lifeboats bob near the edge of chaos, passengers clamoring for a chance to escape. But the lifeboats are full. Someone, a stranger, grips Hayes's arm, his breath ragged. What do we do? There's not enough room. Look! The man points at the jagged edges of the whirling waves, whispering death. In the heart of the storm, a cry breaks the tension. For God's sake, someone help me! A vessel of despair, a mother still on deck, clutching a child tightly. Her desperate gazes lock with Hayes, and in that moment, he knows. Time slows. Throw her a line, he orders, dragging ropes towards her. The ship pitches violently, and with each sway, her grip loosens. Father, I can't hold on, the child wails, a sound that pierces through the storm. The mother, drenched and terrified, gasps back. Hold tight, darling, please. Despair paints every face around them, a harsh realization that survival may require sacrifice. The lifeboats dangle like mirages, an unattainable paradise amidst chaos. Then, from the cabin, a thought shatters the tense moment. There's still hope in the hold, someone yells, desperation clinging to their words like a lifeline. Can the ship still hold? Abandon hope, Sullivan snarls, urgency bubbling into fury. We must leave now, or we'll all perish. An eerie silence falls as the full weight of their options sinks in. The darkness of the sea beckons, a void of endless despair, inviting them to choose between the fraying vessel or the treacherous tide. Jump! Jump now! Someone shouts, and the moment fractures into chaos. They clamber to the edge, drenched in terror, teetering between the known horror of the ship and the inscrutable depths below. The cold water calls, luring them as adrenaline floods their veins. The lurch of another wave rocks the ship, and several people tumble overboard, screams echoing against the wind. My God! A voice cracks, and they see a man, arms flailing, swallowed by ocean's fury. For every leap taken, another is lost to the abyss. What are we waiting for? Someone yells, terror bleeding into command. Uncertainty lingers, each heart racing, each breath shallow. On 3, Hayes decides, drawing a tight circle of those nearest him. His heart pounds louder than the thunder above as he counts. 1, 2, 3. They leap en masse, bodies colliding with the icy embrace of the sea. The shock sends their senses reeling. A hiss of breath escapes there. Lips like prayers into the storm. Panic grips their souls as they sink briefly before clawing to the surface. Gasping, they look back at the St. Paul, a beautiful creature of steel reduced to a grotesque silhouette, shrouded in rain and mist. The ship groans under the onslaught, a gaping maw of waves swallowing it whole. We have to swim, Sullivan yells, prying through the rising panic. The cold cuts at their skin, 1,000 shards of ice. Each stroke stretches their exhausted bodies to the breaking point. The horizon blends into a chaos of grey, and the taste of salt mingles with the bitter sting of loss. They are few, adrift in the vastness. The storm rages on, relentless, tearing at their resolve. How far? Someone gasps, fighting against the current. Fear knots in their stomach as they realize. Adrift is a slow death. Suddenly, a flash of hope pierces the tempest. A dark shape emerges from the murky water, an island, rugged and distant, yet standing as a beacon, through the spray. There! Do you see it? Echoes a voice, barely heard through the shadows of chaos. Relief mingles with uncertainty, forcing them to press on. Fingers claw against the water, exhausted muscles screaming in protest. Their breaths are short, hearts myopic with desperation. But the waves rise, again and again, each crashing wall threatening to drag them down. "Keep swimming," Sullivan shouts, pushing against the waves. "We can't stop now." They fight through pain, driven by the siren call of survival. Eyes narrow, jaws grit, each stroke propelling them toward a fate unknown. But as darkness swirls beneath, they know despair lurks just beneath the surface. The island grows closer, but fear is now a palpable thing, heavy and suffocating. A question hangs like a storm cloud. Will they make it, or will this fight end in vain? As they reach for the rocky shore, a cold claw of realization grips their hearts. The sea has claimed part of them, something they may never recover. And in silence, they tread toward the island's unforgiving ground. What awaited them on that rocky shore of survival? The storm may have receded, but the true test of their humanity has just begun. There, perched on the edge between hope and despair, they draw breath. The struggle is far from over, with darkness swirling ever closer, and no one knows what horrors lie waiting ahead. What sacrifices will they face to survive this descent? As the echoes of their panic die down, a new dread emerges. The island is not uninhabited. Dark shadows ripple in the distance. Whispers of fate hang in the air. What will they find beyond this storm? Chapter 4. First Steps on the Island. The raft drifts lazily to shore, a rickety assembly of salvaged boards. The survivors spill out onto the sand, their bodies trembling with exhaustion, hope wrestling against despair. The island is a deceptive paradise, vibrant greens framing the blue of the ocean, yet an ominous silence hangs in the air, thick and palpable. "Is it safe here?" murmurs Elias, his voice cracking. He scans the tree line, tension in his shoulders. The others do not answer, lost in the beauty and strangeness of their surroundings. They stand for a moment, feet sinking into the grainy earth, letting the warm sun wash over them. It feels foreign, a caress that reminds them of home. But comfort is a fleeting thing. "Move!" cries Sam, breaking the spell. He stands apart from the group, peering into the underbrush. The shadows cast by the leaves pull at him, dark and inviting. "We need to find supplies. We can't stay here long." Nervously, they gather their things, each dragging remnants of their lives from the raft. There's a clinking of metal, cooking pots, scavenged cuts of sealed food, each item a thread of hope. They have matches too, but they're precious. As they tread deeper into the lush foliage, the scents flood their senses. Earthy loam mixes with the sharp tang of salt in the air, while a hint of decay lingers in the corners of rich green life. The sun filters through the leaves, dappling the ground with light as they forge ahead, stepping carefully over twisted roots. "This place, it's haunting," whispers Mara, brushing her fingers against a nearby fern. The texture is soft, almost silk-like, deceiving in its beauty. How can something so beautiful feel so wrong? The others fall silent, absorbing her words. A rustle in the bushes makes them all jump. The sound hangs thick, as if the island itself has a pulse, breathing with them. "Stay close," Sam orders, and a weight settles into the air. They push forward, hearts racing. Their feet crunch on the underbrush, breaking twigs like unease crackling against the silence. Panic flares when they come to a clearing, vivid colors screaming at them, flowers mixed with thorns, butterflies flitting about as if mocking their dread. The juxtaposition is striking, say, world full of life, while they stand on the precipice of death. "We need to find water," Elias declares, voice strained, "or we'll die out here." The others nod, grim agreement hanging in the air, the reality of their situation settling like a thick fog. A small stream gurgles nearby, a meandering twist of life that beckons to them. They rush to the water's edge, kneeling, uncaring of the muck that clings to their clothes as they drink greedily, water cool and refreshing against parched throats. "Help me with these branches," Sam insists, snapping lengths off a nearby tree. They gather around him, motioning for others to carry what they can. Each crack of wood punctuates the air, a reminder of their frailty in this vibrant wilderness. As they work together, the tension of survival starts to shift into a strange camaraderie. Small conversations unfold, fragile laughter bubbling up as they share ideas, memories, and hopes. "We should build a shelter by the stream," Mara proposed, kneeling on the forest floor, drawing in the dirt for emphasis. "I saw some stones near the water. It could work." Others nod, ideas forming in their minds like the designs in her sketch. They scatter to collect materials, wooden limbs and broad leaves woven together with fragile hope. Elias stands to the side, his fingers tracing the edges of a rock that seems to hum with an ancient energy. He feels the weight of ancient stories behind it. "Look at this one. It feels different," he mutters to himself, pondering the mysteries lurking beneath the soil. "Focus, Elias," Sam calls over, frustration creeping into his voice. "We don't have time for distractions." Elias drops the stone, sidling to the others, who are now arranging their makeshift shelter. They work in silence, laboring under the uncertainty that surrounds them. Each rustle of the trees becomes a ghost, a whisper of what exists beyond their fragile reality. As dusk begins, to wrap the island in shadows, they finish the shelter. It stands, a crooked yet sturdy fortress against the dark. The scents of damp earth and wood fill the air. A small fire crackles nearby, tiny flames licking at the evening air, battling the encroaching chill. Maybe we have a chance," Mara says softly, glancing cautiously at the sky. The stars flicker into existence, pinpricks of comfort against the backdrop of uncertainty. Laughter rises again, floating through the air. It feels foreign, yet so needed. They tell stories of home, each name echoing like a prayer in their hearts. But there's still a tightening sensation, and knowing that the night brings new terrors. Then, softly, almost lost in the dark, Elias raises his voice. "I heard something. What if—" He never finishes his thought, because at that moment, a low growl reverberates through the trees, sending icy shards of fear down their spines. They freeze, hearts pounding in unison, the laughter dying on their lips. What lingers in the darkness? The trees sway, silence returning, heavy with something unsaid. The island watches, waits, and breathes. What lived before them? It hungers. Chapter 5. The Gripping Shadow of Starvation. Each dawn breaks without hope. The sun lingers just beyond a thick veil of clouds, casting a somber light across the icebound landscape. The vast expanse of white seems endless, a cruel mockery of the promise of adventure. As the crew of the St. Paul rises from their cramped quarters, an unmistakable silence cloaks them. It hangs heavily in the air, a profound absence that chokes the spirit. The breath of men forms misty plumes that vanish as quickly as their hopes. "What's left in the stores, Davis?" whispers one man, a tremor edging into his voice. The other blinks, his sunken eyes dulled, as if searching for answers buried in the snow. "You know as well as I do," Davis replies after a long pause. "Just the last of the biscuit and a few scraps of salt meat. We're running on fumes now." Gnarled fingers curl around the empty tin, trembling from the cold and something darker. As they stare into the bottom of the can, it feels like staring into an abyss. It is black. It is empty. The temperature has plummeted again, chilling the bones of men already worn thin. Each meal becomes a painful reminder of what lies beyond the ship's hold, a barren wasteland offering no tenderness, no mercy. The wind howls outside. It wails like a sorrowful ghost, haunting the hollow souls trapped within the hull. In the days that follow, every fleeting shadow brings fresh alarm. What was once laughter echoes hollowly, replaced by tense whispers. "Did you hear the others? They say we might have to share our rations." A voice stutters during a gathering. The words hang like lead in the air. Eyes dart amongst faces that used to radiate warmth, but now flicker with fear. "Let them come for me. They'll find I've nothing to give," an older sailor mutters bitterly, glancing sideward as if expecting claws to spring from the shadows. With every passing day, the rancid smell of salt meat decreases, while the creeping scent of desperation takes hold. A simmering hunger shifts into something deeper, an animal instinct, raw and primal. Conversations become terse. Eyes filled with despair mirror the bleakness outside. Conversations about survival turn into whispers of betrayal. "I saw him digging in the snow this morning," another man says, his voice barely above a murmur. "He was sifting through ice, pulling something from the ground." What did he find? Nothing good. Only more ice, perhaps his own sanity. Time stretches. The watch ticks slowly. Men shift on their feet, their stomachs gnawing at them with each tick of the clock, an ever-present reminder of their plight. "Just one more week," Captain Braithwaite reassures them, though his voice lacks conviction. "Help will come. It must." But the warmth of belief is fading. Shadows sweep over their faces in the dim light. The weight of starvation grows heavier than the ice closing in around them. Among the crew is a young cabin boy named Peter. His eyes were bright once, full of dreams of the dazzling world beyond the horizon. Now they are dull, sunken beneath the weight of his hunger. He clings to a threadbare blanket, wrapping it tightly around his small frame. "Captain," he pleads one evening, "what if we shared our rations? It could help us last a little longer." The captain's eyes flare with a mix of fury and remorse. "There's no time for charity among men. You'll have to learn that if we're to survive." And with those words, the thread of unity frays further. Nights stretch into grotesque realities, each filled with sounds that twist the mind, a scraping of boots on ice, the hollow groan of the ship, and the forlorn cries of the wind. Hunger gnaws not just at their stomachs, but at their reasoning, their humanity. "This isn't the sea, this is hell," one sailor murmurs as they gather around a meager fire, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows across their gaunt faces. Their eyes are sunken. Laughter has become an echo of what once was. "Things have taken a turn," another man agrees, stirred by primal instincts. "We may have to consider alternatives." The suggestion sends a chill down their spines, the unspoken terror weaving itself into their midst. "You don't mean—" A voice trails off, the implication hanging uncomfortably in the air. "We can't let ourselves sink into madness, yet." Captain Braithwaite's voice cuts through the tension like a knife. "We're sailors. We must keep faith." Faith, however, grows thin. Each day heralds another dawn without rescue, another descent into despair. The sea outside seems as indifferent as a corpse, frozen and still. Ice bites at their bones, gnaws at their minds. Meals grow scant. The smallest morsel shared between two men becomes a ritual, a morose ceremony of survival. "Just a crumb, just a taste," one whispers to the other, both aware of the slow unraveling of trust. Peter feels trapped in a waking nightmare. At night he dreams of fresh bread, warm and golden, slathered in butter. He wakes screaming in the darkness, the cacophony of hollow stomachs filling the void. The reality assails him hard. Hunger erodes reason. "What's happening to us?" he whispers to nobody in particular, as he watches men who once stood united begin to turn against one another, desperation twisting the very core of their camaraderie. A week passes. Time, a relentless adversary. Tension snaps one evening, igniting like a kindling. Someone, driven mad by the spectre of starvation, lunges for the meager remains of a shared tin, tearing through the last scraps of bread. "Stop! Don't!" the shout erupts, startling men out of their stupor. But it is too late. In the struggle, the tin clatters across the floor, contents scattering like lost hope. The air thickens with pungent sweat. Men wrestle in a frenzy, hands clawing desperately at each other. "What's wrong with you?" a voice hollers, desperation curdling into rage. Amidst the chaos, Peter stands rooted, heart pounding. He watches horror unfold. Men driven not just by hunger, but by the primal urge to survive at any cost. He feels the cruel irony settle over him. What had once been a journey of discovery has morphed into a grim struggle for survival. Laughter once warmed them, and now only fear and greed take its place. Just then, the ship shudders, pulling them from their desperate scuffle. The ice outside moans, and voices halt abruptly. Something is shifting, something terrifying. "Brace yourselves!" Captain Braithwaite roars, the authority in his voice cutting through the chaos. But their eyes are fixed toward the darkness, hearts thudding with dread. What lies beyond the thin walls of their vessel? In a world where hunger breeds chaos, where does humanity end and survival begin? Chapter 6. Nature's Cruelty. They stand beneath the towering canopy, the sunlight dappled and hesitant, as if afraid to touch the ground. The air is thick, sticky, pressing against their skin, leaving damp patches on their shirts. Each breath feels labored, the humidity wrapping around their lungs like a vice. "This jungle," one of them mutters, a man named Joseph, running a hand through his matted hair. "It looks like paradise, but it's a prison dressed in green." He wipes the sweat from his brow, but the heat keeps clawing at him. Around them, the vibrant foliage sways. Leaves rustle with a whisper that sounds like laughter, mocking their plight. Birds call out from the heights, their cries echoing, beautiful, yet haunting. The flora teems with life, yet it's a life tinged with peril. Joseph crouches beside a footpath lined with bright, toxic blossoms. "You see this? Pretty but deadly," he warns, plucking one cautiously. The petals gleam, a vivid red like fresh blood. "We can't trust a thing here." His companions, weary and worn, nod without much thought. They've learned quickly. Nature's allure hides a cunning cruelty beneath its beauty. One careless step, one wrong choice, and they could pay with their lives. Every step forward is weighed down by dread. The jungle's weight hangs heavy in the air, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. The ground shifts beneath their feet, sodden and treacherous, as if the very soil conspires to trip them. "Do you think there's food?" Thomas, younger and still fresh, asks, bringing a faint spark of hope. His eyes dart around as he searches for something, anything edible in this vast tangle of roots and vines. "Food doesn't just grow on trees, lad," Joseph replies, his voice gruff. "We'll see what we can find, if we can find anything at all." A sound of distress churns in his gut. He knows the truth. Food is scarce, resources dwindling. The jungle seems to respond suddenly, alive with the sounds of unseen beasts. Insects swarm, their buzzing a relentless symphony. Beneath the cacophony, something rustles in the underbrush. The men freeze, hearts pounding. "What was that?" Thomas whispers, barely audible, but his voice carries the weight of panic. The air cools, a shiver runs through them despite the heat. "Steady now," snaps Joseph, pulling his machete from its sheath. The blade gleams with a dangerous promise. "We're not alone here. Stay close." Each footfall feels like an intrusion. The earth is soft and slick, a saturated sponge ready to swallow them whole. The sudden snap of a twig underfoot sent adrenaline coursing through their veins. "Get back," Joseph hisses, the edge of fear creeping into his tone. He peers into the underbrush, eyes narrowed. Then they see it. Dark eyes, watching intently. A wild boar, bristled and snorting, teeth bared in a snarl. "Move slowly," he instructs, voice barely above a whisper. "Don't provoke it." The creature lingers, muscles tensed. They can smell the musk of its fur, the sharp tang of sweat and earth mingling in the oppressive heat. It feels like they're sharing a moment with their own mortality, vulnerable, exposed. Thomas gulps, panic fluttering in his throat. "What if it charges?" "We bolt," Joseph replies, his grey eyes hardening. "Run like hell." But instead the boar snorts and steps away, fading into the thick brush. Relief washes over them, but it's short-lived. Nature isn't just a backdrop. Here, it's a force, one they cannot control. As day drags on, the tension sharpens. Their stomachs growl, rage against their ribs. They scout the area, searching the jungle that seems to shift and mold around them. When night falls, it comes suddenly, a black blanket smothering the world. The air cools, a stark contrast to the day's heat. Shadows stretch, morphing into figures that dance at the edges of their vision. "Keep the fire going," Joseph orders, adding another log to the sputtering flames. The flickering light throws monstrous shapes against the trees, shadows twisting like nightmares born of fear. Crackling embers float up, ghostly spirits diving into the black. The smell of smoke mingles with damp wood, an acrid reminder of their vulnerability. They pull their ragged jackets closer, trying to ward off the encroaching chill. "Can't believe we're stuck here," Thomas says, staring into the fire as if it's the last warmth left in the world. "What do we do if we don't get out?" Joseph meets his gaze over the flames, his expression raw, stripped of bravado. "We take it one day at a time. That's all we can do." The silence stretches, heavier than the humid air. They can hear the calls of nocturnal creatures awakening, their chorus of calls, a symphony of dread. Each sound is a reminder that they are not the apex predators anymore. They are just guests in this sprawling, unforgiving wilderness. Footfalls behind the grating calls could belong to the unseen, creeping closer each moment. Something rustles in the distance, a heavy weight, the crunch of leaves. A growl fills the space, deep and low, sending a chill racing down their spines. "What in God's name was that?" Thomas rasps, eyes wide with fear. Joseph grips his machete tighter, knuckles white, heart racing. "Get ready. Whatever it is, it smells weakness." The moments stretch, painfully elongated as they lean into the firelight, straining for answers they can't find. Anticipation coils around them, tightening like a noose. And then, the truth hits them harder than a fist. They're not alone, not anymore. The jungle, with its beauty and danger, is watching. How long before nature's cruelty turns against them? As the shadows shift and move, they share one last fearful glance. Time is running out. Their salvation, perhaps, lies just a heartbeat away, or just beyond the dark. Chapter 7. Facing Inner Demons. The wind howls outside the St. Paul, a relentless banshee echoing through the frozen air. Inside, the crew huddles together, the flickering lantern light casting long shadows against the cabin walls. Sweat beads on foreheads, even as the temperature plunges. They can hardly breathe due to the rancid smell of damp wood and unwashed bodies. "What do you think is taking them so long?" Samuel whispers, his voice tight with anxiety. His eyes dart towards the door, fearing what or who might come through. They are trapped in this metal tomb, the surrounding ice holding them captive in a white void. "They should have been back by now," Thomas mutters, his fingers rubbing the stubble on his jaw, a nervous habit that has surged since the storms began. The crackling wood fire offers scant comfort, the flames roaring hungrily, illuminating the fatigue etched into every face. Silence settles like a thick blanket, wrapping tight around their throats. Each man is alone with his thoughts, haunted by visions of home, a stark contrast to the shadowy shapes in front of them. The lantern's light plays tricks on their minds, turning familiar faces into phantoms. "I can't take this anymore." Edward's voice breaks the quietude. He sits slumped against the wall, eyes glazed over. "It's like we're already dead." The others turn to him, expressions flickering between concern and frustration. It's a thought they all share but dare not vocalize. Edward stares into the fire like it holds the answers to their madness. "We're losing it. Every minute, every hour spent in this cursed place." "Stay strong, mate," Thomas urges, though his own heart races at the thought of succumbing to panic. Outside, the wind shrieks like the lost souls of men who've tread these icy waters before them. "We can't give up." But the words feel hollow, like echoes in an empty chamber. The group shares, furtive looks, guilt and regret clawing at their insides. Each man carries his own weight, a personal burden made heavier by the isolation. Samuel shifts uneasily, recalling the fight with his brother over the expedition's purpose. "If we had just stuck to the original route," he mumbles under his breath, the regret twisting like a knife in his gut. "Don't start that again," Thomas snaps, frustration boiling over. "We need to focus on surviving, not on what-ifs." "Surviving? Huh?" Edward barks a harsh laugh, the sound stark against the oppressive silence. "Is this what surviving looks like? No food, no hope, just waiting for the end?" The unyielding cold seeps deeper into their bones. They smell despair, a rancid, sour scent that fills the room and makes their stomachs churn. They each wonder how long they can endure this cacophony of internal chaos before something snaps. Then, a thud from outside. They freeze, straining to hear. A moment passes, heavy, as the snow piling against the metal hull. The thud comes again, this time louder. Samuel leaps to his feet, heart hammering against his ribcage. "Someone's out there," he whispers, eyes wide. Should we check?" "Are you mad?" Thomas snaps, anger blending with fear. "It could be anything, a bear or worse." "Or the others. They could need us," Samuel shoots back, determination igniting in his chest. The primitive instincts are awakening within them, the fight-or-flight responses sharpening their senses. The group stares at each other, faces pale, breaths quickening. Each pair of eyes reflects the growing tension, the dull ache of hunger gnawing at their insides, spurring their fears more than any storm ever could. "Let's not act rashly," Edward urges, his voice steadier than he feels. "We don't know what's out there. We can't risk it." But Samuel's resolve hardens. He feels the weight of the world pressing on him. "I'm checking," he exclaims, his heart racing as he moves toward the door. "I can't sit here waiting to die." "No, don't you dare," Thomas shouts, panic breaking through the last shreds of his composure. "We stuck together for a reason. You open that door, you might not come back." Samuel hesitates, the howling wind outside becoming a siren's call. It whispers promises of liberation from their current hell. His hand hovers over the handle, sweat mingling with the frost that coats the metal surface. "Please don't, mate. We're a team," Edward pleads, shaking his head with desperation. "We've survived this far together." A moment stretches into an eternity. The tension in the room thickens, boiling under the surface. An underlying current of primal fear ripples through them, echoing the fight that rages within their minds. "You want to talk about fighting? Try fighting this," Samuel spits, frustration boiling over. "I can't just sit here, tearing at myself while something might be out there. Or someone." As if summoning the world outside to seal their fate, Samuel yanks open the door. Cold air rushes in, a sharp bite that sends tremors down their spines. What they see, or don't see, paralyzes them. Darkness looms, swirling shadows dancing in the night. The world beyond is an abyss, the blackness swallowing the weak light from their cabin. "What the hell?" Edward whispers, his voice cracking as he peers into the void. The wind screams as Samuel steps outside, the cold biting into his skin like needles. He squints, searching the dark, desperate to find what had made that noise. A chilling thought creeps into his mind. What if there's nothing but silence waiting for him? "Samuel," Thomas screams, terror and fury mixing in his voice. The urgency of the situation sends a jolt through the men inside. Then, the door slams shut behind him, cutting off their cries. Suddenly, a blood-curdling shriek fills the air, a sound that shakes them to their core. It's desperate and haunting, echoing through the night like the wails of the damned. "What was that?" Edward gasps, eyes wide with horror. They all know, deep down, it's a sound they never wanted to hear. It was the sound of someone losing it, losing themselves to the madness of this unforgiving landscape. As they listen, the reality becomes chillingly clear. Survival is not just about facing the storm outside, it's about confronting the demons inside. Each man grapples with haunting memories, buried fears clawing their way to the surface. The primal instinct of survival begins to shift into something darker, a twisted reflection of who they really are when stripped of all pretense. They are not just fighting the elements, they are fighting themselves, and the worst of their horror stories is yet to unfold. A sudden silence crashes down, so heavy it feels as though the cabin is crumbling under its weight. Where is Samuel? The wind has stopped, and all they are left with is an all-consuming dread. Sudden realization grips them. Not all demons can be seen. Some lurk deep within. What awaits them next? And will they survive what's already inside? Chapter 8. Rituals of Despair. The air hangs heavy with a damp chill, clinging to the skin like a wet shroud. A grey mist rolls in from the ocean, swirling languidly, wrapping around the survivors of St. Paul Island. They huddle close, eyes sunken, faces gaunt and pale. The weight of despair presses down on them, as palpable as the salt-laden wind that stings their exposed cheeks. Around the makeshift camp, embers flicker from a dying fire, casting long shadows. The light dances on the haggard faces of men and women who once laughed, dreamed, felt hope. Now, they gather in silence, their spirits frayed. One man leans closer to the fire, coaxing it with shaking hands. "We can't let it go out," he murmurs, voice rasping. "It's all we have left." Their bodies ache from the cold and the endless nights. The sound of a shuffling foot breaks the silence. A woman, thin as a wisp, clutches a tattered blanket around her shoulders. "We need to do something," she says, her voice barely a whisper. Before it takes us all." The others nod, eyes wide with collective dread. They know what she means without speaking it. The island has started to gnaw at their minds, like the relentless waves lapping at the shore. The isolation grows thicker each day. As twilight falls, a man named Jonah stands up, trembling but resolute. "We have to honor the island," he declares. "We need to make it understand." His words hang in the air, heavy with the weight of desperation. A chill runs through the group. They know the implications of his intentions. "What do you mean?" asks a younger survivor, incredulous. "You want to, what, plead with rocks and trees?" The bitterness in his voice betrays his fear, but Jonah's eyes gleam with a fervor fueled by madness. "A ritual," Jonah insists, a fire igniting in his voice. "We must give it something, offer something of ourselves." His suggestion spirals out into the night, tangled with uncertainty. The horizon is dark, but the ideas are bright and chaotic, a flicker of defiance against the engulfing despair. The group deliberates, whispers merging into murmurs of agreement, as if rebellion is a heartbeat amplifying in unison. Hours pass, and the fire dwindles to glowing embers. A hollowed-out log is set in the center of their circle, serving as an altar. They gather around it, shoulders brushing, hearts racing. Jonah begins to chant, a raspy sound that dances in the obsidian air. "Great Spirit of the island, hear us," he calls, his voice quaking nervously. His eyes are wide, reflecting the firelight. "We offer our strength, our hunger. We seek your guidance." The others can taste the salt in the air, feel it, mingling with their breath. "And what of our fears?" one woman murmurs, her brow furrowed deeply. "Will it appease the darkness? Will it be enough?" In response, Jonah pulls a small, carved totem from a hidden pocket, a crude representation of a figure, perhaps a spirit of the land. He places it on the log and watches as the flickering flames paint it in haunting shades of orange and red. "We give this," he says, voice trembling yet filled with intent, "for protection, for hope." The chanting grows louder, an echo of desperation seeping into the earth beneath them. They take turns speaking their grievances, their sins, their vulnerabilities. "I fear the touch of death," one man admits, shuddering. "I fear the darkness eating the little light we have left." Another woman steps forward, tears shining like crystals in the firelight. "I fear I will forget what it feels like to be warm, to be whole." They each lay their offerings on the makeshift altar, a glove, a shard of glass, a hairpin, relics of lives once lived. It feels like a collective exorcism. They toss in their belongings like desperate hopes, praying for a spark of salvation. But as the night extends into a yawning chasm of gloom, the energy shifts. The wind kicks up, howling through the trees. It carries a haunting melody, eerie and uninvited, sending shivers through the assembly. The fire pops loudly. They feel the ground beneath shift and tremble, as if the island responds to their plea. "What if it hears us?" asks a voice from somewhere in the crowd, quaking with unfiltered fear. "What if we are unwelcome?" The cold rushes in, wrapping fingers of ice around their hearts. Every rustle in the leaves feels like a whisper from another realm. "Maybe this was a mistake," another survivor murmurs, glancing nervously at the darkness surrounding them. But it's too late to turn back. The ritual pulls them in, binding them with chains of dread and desperation. Then there is a shift, a crack, a sharp echo. The sound erupts from the forest, snapping branches, as if the island itself is reacting to their incantation. The group freezes, eyes wide, breaths held tight. "Did you hear that?" someone whispers, voice trembling. The air grows colder. "Get back!" Jonah shouts, an edge of fear threading through his authority. The darkness thickens, wrapping around their minds, stifling their hopes. Panic unfurls, laying waste to the fragile order they've created. Shadows dance between them, weaving through their insecurities. Each survivor glances at one another, faces pale and uncertain, wrestling with the knowledge that maybe their desperate measures have stirred something unwanted. Whispers turn to shouts as fear ignites. "We didn't mean it. We didn't mean to anger you." Jonah raises his hands, pleading, but the shadows do not relent. They come closer. The wind rises in angry shrieks, tossing leaves into the air like curses. In that moment, the frail constructs of their sanity seem paper-thin against the sweeping horror they've unleashed. The ground shifts beneath them, an ominous tremor running through the very fabric of their reality. A realization dawns, a warmth in the chest quickly drowned by ice. They have called upon forces beyond their understanding. As they stumble back, heartbeats crashing in synchrony, each survivor knows nothing can return to normal after this night. A figure looms in the blackness of the trees, stark against the inky night. Eyes gleam like embers, reflecting their hopes and fears. Jonah steps forward, heart pounding, uncertain yet drawn to the presence. "Who goes there?" he calls out, voice steady despite the tremor that rips through him. The answer is a silence that stretches into eternity. Then a voice rises, dripping with an ancient echo, and it sends icy fingers into the marrow of their bones. "You have awoken me." And in that moment, a darkness washes over them, swallowing hope whole, and leaving only the taste of despair lingering on their tongues. Chapter 9. Signals to the Unknown. The icy grip of winter has long settled in. It bites at the flesh, gnaws on spirits. Within the battered hull of the Scient pool, time creeps forward, measured in shallow breaths, and the rasp of frozen skin against splintered wood. The stench of seawater mixes with decay, a constant reminder of their dire situation. Days have blended into weeks. Each morning, the sun rises over the crushed ice, a pale orb struggling to cast warmth. Those who remain look to the sky, searching for planes, hoping for ships, fixated on any sign of salvation. Tomorrow will surely bring help, they tell themselves. But the horizon stays stubbornly empty. Charles has taken it upon himself to keep morale up. "We'll make a signal," he declares, the desperation in his voice masked by bravado, a fire that can be seen for miles. The others nod, though skepticism hangs in the frigid air. Their spirits, much like the embers in their makeshift fire pits, are fading to ash. Several men gather around a pile of driftwood and old sails. They prepare to build a blaze that will pierce the Arctic gloom. The wood is damp, but Charles believes they can coax flames into life. The smell of smoke fills their lungs, a bitter taste that mingles with hope. "Raphael, grab some pitch from that wreckage," Charles commands, and Raphael scurries to comply. He's thin, his cheeks drawn tight against his skull, but determination glares in his eyes. Every action is punctuated by the haunting shadow of despair, but they push forward, each man clinging to the flicker of hope, however dim. Night falls hard, enveloping them in darkness. Their small flame dances against the biting cold, casting distorted shadows on the ice outside. The wind howls, a mournful sound, like ghosts lamenting their plight. "I don't think it's enough," murmurs Samuel, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if nobody sees it?" Charles shakes his head, his brow furrowed with annoyance. "It's not enough to think. We have to do. If we give up now, we're dead." Samuel looks away, searching the shadows for strength. The wind hisses, carrying the weight of their unspoken fears. They are dwindling. Food is nearly gone. Hope, too, is a fragile thing. Over the following days, they triple their efforts. More fires, larger signals, even desperate shouts echo across the ice. "Help! We are here!" The words are swallowed by the winter gale. One night, Elias finds a dusty flare gun amongst the remnants of the ship's supplies. It's a beacon of fading technology, a chance to pierce through the heavy shroud of despair. "We can use this," he hollers, energy igniting in him. But the men stare, apprehensive. "What if it misfires?" Samuel whispers. "What if it attracts danger?" "More danger than this," Elias snaps, waving the gun as if it were a sword against ghosts. They can't afford hesitation. Night after night, the tension mounts, each failed signal a blow to their dwindling resolve. Despair clings to them like the chilling frost decorating their haggard faces. The fires burn low, coals glowing like dying embers, and their bodies grow weaker. The grip of isolation deepens, tightening around their throats. It happens one dreary afternoon, while the men silently gather around a fading fire. A cough disrupts the bleakness. It's Leon, whose gaunt form is wrapped in rags and shadows. "I saw something," he croaks, his voice a trembling leaf in the wind. "What?" Charles demands, leaning forward. "Out there," he points, a quivering finger directing their attention to barren horizons. A shape in the distance. The men leap to their feet, a mixture of hope and dread flickering within them. "Where?" "Toward the east. I thought I saw something. A ship, I think." The word hangs in the air, sharp and tantalizing as a blade. Hope mingles with disbelief. "Get the flare gun." "Elias," Charles commands, urgency clashing with uncertainty. The minutes stretch painfully as Elias scrambles for the gun, the cold biting through the thin fabric of his clothing. The men gather, hearts pounding, breaths clouding in the icy air. "Let's make this count," Charles whispers, almost like a prayer. They stand shoulder to shoulder, scant feet from their flickering fire, the ever-present chill gnawing at their resolve. With a deep breath, Elias raises the flare gun, hands trembling but steady. A sharp crack splits the air as the flare leaps into the sky, a bright arc slicing through the slate grey. They watch, breathless, as its flame ignites the firmament. Time stretches. Did it carry the hope they pinned on it? Silence follows, thick and unnerving. The flare sizzles, sputters, and falls. The colours fade, replaced by the stark raw chill of reality. Days blur into an even darker night. The uncertainty has etched away at their minds. Every shadow feels alive. Each creak of the ship fires up their imaginations. Are those the footsteps of hope, or the whispers of despair? Leon stares into the empty horizon. "We're ghosts, you know," he mumbles, voice cracking like the ice underfoot, "just waiting for the sea to claim us." No one responds, each man lost in his thoughts, drifting further from stability. Despair has a taste, like wet earth, and they are swallowing it whole. They lead themselves through the motions of survival, sparing bites of rotten provisions, endless futile attempts at signaling, pacing like animals trapped in a cage. With each day, sanity frays. Then, one grey morning, a sound breaks the ritual silence. A thrum, distant yet familiar. The men rush to the deck, hearts racing. Hope flares, reckless and wild. "What is that?" Samuel gasps, eyes widening. The sound reverberates, a promise of escape. "It could be a ship," Charles yells, straining his ears to catch the fading notes. But as quickly as it appeared, the sound dissipates into the muted expanse. Silence returns, an oppressive weight heavier than before, leaving them breathless. Hearts sink deeper than the ocean floor. The shadows around them grow sharper, suffocating. Each man retreats into the recesses of his own mind, haunted by what might have been. As evening falls, the borders of despair tighten once more. Flickering lights from their fires feel like whispers from the dying sun. Alone, they each battle ghosts, the echo of derision, the pang of regret, the gnawing knowledge that something is lurking just beyond their reach. Charles stands alone, stoking the embers and wondering about the search patterns in the sky. Did anyone look closer? Did they even try? But then, from the frozen abyss, he feels it, a pulse of energy, a signal in the darkness. "What if?" he breathes, the words escaping like a fragile wisp from his lips. "What if we can send another signal, something they cannot ignore?" The thought hangs heavy in the air, electrifying uncertainty racing up their spines. It's a question of survival now, a challenge against the unknown. They move together, souls intertwined by the thin thread of hope that refuses to snap. What more could they devise? In the silence, ideas begin to form, spiraling into wild desperation. Each heartbeat echoes the fragility of existence as the men gather, reclaiming their strength, minds igniting with possibility. But as they plot their next move, darkness looms, a spectre on the fringes of their dwindling hope. Will they rise again, or will they sink deeper into the void? And somewhere, beyond the horizon, a distant rumble shakes the earth. What looms in the shadows is an encroaching menace, ready to descend just as the warmth of hope flickers on the edge of extinction. Chapter 10. A Glimpse of Salvation. The wind howls like a banshee, a cruel biting force that cuts through the ragged clothes of the survivors. They shiver, packed together, each breath misting like phantom whispers in the frigid air. The days blend into one another, a relentless cycle of hunger, despair, and the suffocating weight of hopelessness. It is morning, though the sun seems to have forgotten this remote stretch of ocean. The survivors gather, their faces gaunt and ashen, eyes sunken deep into their sockets. Fear hangs heavy in the air, its thick presence palpable, making every word spoken feel desperate, like a prayer in the dark. "I can't feel my toes," mutters Henry, a slight tremor in his voice. "Stop your whining, man," gruffly retorts James, a veteran sailor with salt-streaked hair. "We ain't got time for that." His tone is hard, but there's an edge of vulnerability there, an acknowledgement that they are all hanging by a thread. A bone-chilling gust of wind sweeps across the shore, making them huddle closer. The scent of brine mingles with the acrid note of burning driftwood. They've scavenged what little remains of their provisions, the fire providing meager warmth. Each flicker casts ghastly shadows that dance on the rocky ground, playing tricks on their minds. "Will it ever end?" Elizabeth, the only woman among them, asks quietly, her voice barely rising above the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks. Her eyes are wide, reflecting the darkness within. "Don't talk like that," snaps Thomas, a young lad with dirt-smeared cheeks. "We'll get out of here. We just have to hold on." Yet even he struggles to sound convincing. The days stretch out, each crammed with the silent dread of their survival. Their hopes are like fragile glass, ready to shatter with the slightest tremor. Just as despair threatens to envelop them entirely, the ocean shifts in a way nobody expects. A distant shape emerges on the horizon, a mirage that causes hearts to quicken. A ship. Its sails unfurl against the grey sky, contrasting starkly with the desiccated land. Hope flares, bright and blinding, sweeping across the group like wildfire. "Look!" shouts Henry, his fingers trembling as he points excitedly. For a heartbeat, disbelief washes over them. Then a flood of emotions crashes in, terrifying yet exhilarating. "It must be a cargo ship," James shouts, already moving, his purposeful strides reassuring, invigorating even. "Run, everyone," Elizabeth calls, her voice now filled with urgency. They jostle for position, racing to the shore, the cold air sharp in their lungs. Waves lap at their feet, the frigid water numbing them further, but the promise of escape keeps them going. Each step feels monumental, every heartbeat reverberating in their chests. As the ship grows larger, a strange sense of foreboding creeps back in. People begin to discuss their plans, but the camaraderie snaps like a brittle twig underfoot. "What if they don't take us?" Thomas asks, a cloud of doubt threatening to eclipse their dream. "They have to," says James, his voice stern yet laced with uncertainty. "Listen, the captain can't leave us here." The words ring hollow but offer a glimmer of resolve. They strain to see the colors of the ship, the figures on deck. A distant cry reaches them, words lost in the wind, but the urgency is clear. "Ho there! Is anyone on the shore?" It booms out, authoritative yet weary, filled with compassion for souls abandoned. Elizabeth squints against the sun-drenched waves, her heart pounding. "Please, we're over here," she screams, waving her arms frantically, as if she can beckon salvation closer with sheer will. But as the sailors on the deck lean over, the grim reality seeps back in. "They're not stopping," Henry breathes, the elation fading. "They're passing us by." A murmur runs through the group, something darker tightening the air. What if they can't see us? What if they're not here for us? The unspoken fears fester. Despair lurks at the edges, whispering cruel truths. "Wait!" Thomas shouts suddenly. "Look there!" He points shakily. Something drifts closer from the ship. A small dinghy is lowered, gliding across the choppy waves. Hope surges anew, electric and wild. "There's a chance," Elizabeth gasps, breathless, each heartbeat a promise. The dinghy bobs in the water as a pair of sailors row towards the shore with surprising urgency. Their faces are set, a mix of purpose and unease. As they draw closer, the survivors' anticipation swells. One of the sailors rises, shouting again, "Who are you? What's happened?" The group stumbles over their words, a jumbled cacophony of cries for help. "We're survivors of the St. Paul," Elizabeth pleads, her voice cracking. "We need—" And then, without warning, the sailor's demeanor shifts. He looks around in confusion, concern dawning on him like the first light of dawn. "There's something wrong," he mutters to his companion, glancing back at the ship. "We may be too late." Panic washes over the group. "What do you mean?" James hisses, fear clawing at his throat. The shadows of the past loom ever closer. "No one said anything about danger." The second sailor glares back at the ship, then to the land. "We can't risk it." Lots of murmurs of confusion punctuate the air, souls sewn together by fear. "Please, we have to leave," Elizabeth begs, desperation fueling her courage. "We can't stay here." Her voice trembles, each word a plea for compassion. The sailors exchange glances, tension steeping the air like thick fog. Guilt washes over their faces, but behind it lies uncertainty. One sailor turns back, focused on the horizon. "We have orders." Simple orders. "Keep the cargo safe." His comrade finishes, the chill of their indifference apparent. The heaviness of the moment stings, settling like snow upon their faces. The survivors sense the fleeting nature of opportunity. Hope transforms into a cruel illusion. As they stand there, hearts pounding, an unwelcome realization dawns upon them. The ship might not be there for them at all. Panic grips their throats. "What if they don't want us?" Henry whispers. Their connection to each other tightens, a collective breath held. The ship drifts further into the distance, a looming spectre, and then one of the sailors utters a single phrase, the gravity of it sinking in, heavy as lead. "We're here to salvage what's left." The breath leaves them all. The realization cuts deeper than the cold. They are pawns in a game much larger than they understand, and the glimmer of salvation flickers, nearly extinguished. As the ship recedes into despair, a new horror rises from the depths, unseen but felt. Hope is a fickle beast, and some may never escape its grip. Now what? With that question hanging like mist in the air, the survivors are left trembling, facing the monstrous void of uncertainty. The weight of what they might never escape presses down, and that is when they hear it, a scream, piercing and raw, echoing from the ship. Their heads turn in unison, hearts racing anew. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. The tide shifts. The haunting legacy. The air is thick with the weight of memories, haunting like a ghost that refuses to fade. The survivors of the St. Paul carry more than just scars on their bodies. They bear the indelible marks of a twisted fate. Those who returned to civilization bore witness to a darkness that lingers, a shadow lurking behind their eyes that never truly lifts. Night after night, they relive the terrors that unfolded on that cursed island. The whisper of the wind through the trees could easily be mistaken for the cries of those they lost. Each rustle feels heavy with sorrow, and each crackle of branches reminds them of frantic footsteps fleeing from an unspeakable horror. The heart of the wilderness pressed down on them. A.C. Savage reminder that humanity's veneer can strip away in an instant. Among the survivors is Thomas Hartley, a man who once thrived in the bustling life of a harbour town. Now he stares blankly at the waves, each crash echoing the instability in his mind. "I can't close my eyes anymore," he confesses, voice trembling. "Every time I do, I see them, the things we unleashed." His wife, Margaret, once a beacon of warmth, now carries a chill in her demeanour. "You're safe now, Thomas," she urges, her voice soft but edged with desperation. Yet, she knows that safety is an illusion. A bitter laugh escapes him, hollow and empty. "The island will forever haunt me, love. I cannot escape it." This is their reality, a life textured by a relentless fear, stitched into the very fabric of their beings. The physical journeys they took across the ocean pale in comparison to the psychological storms they now endure. Each of them carries a piece of the island, a fragment of terror held close to the heart. And for those who remained on the island, the legacy is even darker. Whispers of eerie lights flickering at night, shadows moving where none should exist. The earth itself seems to mourn with them, as if it is tainted by the greed and desperation that unfolded. "They should have left it alone," mutters old Jacob, staring into the firelight. "But we were fools, drawn by the promise of gold and glory." As corners of civilization spread and encase their memories, the question remains, are they truly free from the grip of the island? The glimmering bright lights of their towns cannot erase the cold of a long, dark night spent in fear. History echoes in their minds, a loop that spins faster with every attempt to forget. On quiet nights, when the moon hangs low and silver, you might hear the murmurs of discontent. They speak of isolation, of the others who never returned, of family torn apart. Children gather round the flickering flames, eyes wide, asking their parents uneasy questions. "Is it true, Mother? Did they see monsters?" Vague shadows pass for answers, fear wrapped tightly in misleading comforts. "What we uncovered may as well have been a curse," a local historian would write decades later, detailing the sordid saga with feverish strokes. He notes chilling accounts in faded ink, the hardship, the loss, that seep into the memories of those who dare to listen. Yet none truly understand the horror. They can't grasp the way that history twists the hearts of those who've lived it. The island itself stands as a merciless monument to their failures. It watches over the land like a silent sentinel, knowing the red stains of ambition and despair. Histories intertwine, like the gnarled roots of ancient trees, bound together in a tale of dread that should never be forgotten. In dim whispers, the elders share tales with shaking voices. It waits, they warn, blending the line between myth and recollection. What we released shall not stay put. Even as decades roll on, the past suddenly feels closer, pulsing beneath the surface, a heartbeat of terror longing to escape once more. The legacy of the St. Paul is not merely anecdotal. It is alive, a gnawing presence echoing through generations that dare to trace their roots back to that island. Each echo unleashes a sense of foreboding, a chilling realization that humanity is but a thin veneer stretched over a potential for ruin. And so, as the sun dips below the horizon, it casts long shadows over both water and land, enveloping the island in darkness. Those who return are left with a haunting reflection of their choices, brought to light yet shadowed in consequence. For every survivor, there lies another piece of the puzzle that remains unresolved, the legacies that carve deep into the world around them. What then remains of them? Survivors live on, yes, yet they are forever changed. They walk among us, bearing unseen chains forged in darkest moments. Each quiet story they carry speaks volumes of the fragility of the human spirit when faced with its own darkness. That which should remain buried can never truly rest, and that realization creeps into every breath they take. As we conclude this tale of harrowing discoveries and lingering dread, we bear witness to the truth that binds us all. There are truths too horrific to confront, and mysteries haunting those who dare tread the fragile line between exploration and folly. If this history has left its mark on you, leave a like. It tells me you survived the journey. Drop a comment below. I want to know what part of this story haunted you most. And join me next time as we delve into the shadows of humanity's darkest hour, a reckoning that reveals the monsters that lurk within us all.